Oh, bonjour les amis. I didn't see you there. I wanted to talk to you today about a little tutorial I made. I recorded one of my character design challenge painting, and I wanted to show you first. This is my tablet. I use this tablet. It's a 2003 model, complete with battle damage. Still working. 2017. Still using the same thing because I'm a cheap bastard. First, I'm going to put my friend the ukulele to bed. Bonne nuit, Franck. Bonne nuit, mon ami. Bonne nuit, bonne nuit, bonne nuit. This is his place. And let's turn this page.
So yeah, this is a character design challenge. The theme was burlesque. Most people have a vague idea about burlesque and what it is, but it's always good to go back to the dictionary and just have a quick read of the definition because it's not exactly what we think it is. It says an artistic composition, especially literary or dramatic, that for the sake of laughter vulgarizes lofty materials or treats ordinary material with mock dignity. And also say a humorous and provocative stage show featuring slapstick humor, comic skits, bawdy songs, striptease acts, and a scantily clad female chorus. So right up my alley, as usual. I like a bit of silliness, but it's silliness with class because there's a lot of talent involved with these costumes, these burlesque costumes, and I was lucky enough once to actually go to a burlesque show. It was a party for when I worked on the Hobbit. We had this burlesque Christmas party where we all got invited and we had to dress up, and it was great. I had a top hat and everything, and then there was all these ladies, and then one of the actors for the Hobbit was on stage, and he had like a cigarette and some long thing that holds the cigarette, and this lady with a this scantily clad lady with a whip just flicked it off, and it was quite funny, quite entertaining. Very dangerous, I think, because this guy's face costs money, and a whip is not something to be handled with by anybody. But she knew what she was doing, and it was quite fun. So the the speed paint, I often start with the same thing. I just quickly put some shapes and then start removing, adding and removing, using this fantastic brush that this concept artist made, Derek Zabroki. It's just a great brush. It's a square brush, so it allows you to make big surfaces quite quickly, and it has a couple of texture in it. So it's basically if you press very lightly, it has little dots, and if you press a bit harder, you have lines everywhere. Then if you press a lot harder, you have complete blackness. So the way you use that brush condition what you see in the image. And a lot of these sort of like speed painting I do on speed paint, I use these different settings to my advantage. It creates more things than just one brush strokes, if you will. I can create a whole landscape very quickly by doing a few brush strokes. So you think there's more to it than actually was painted, which is kind of cool. So yeah, I have my own brushes as well that I use. You'll see me change brushes a lot, but I try to keep to one brush, one layer, because that's what I do. I don't like. Well, if I do an environment, obviously I will use 2, 3, 4 layers, but no more than that, because I don't like when there's too many things, because then you forget. You start painting on the wrong layers, and you have to copy paste and all that, so you make all these mistakes. That depends on what you do. Obviously, if you're doing a piece of concept art that involves photoreal stuff, then obviously you need hundreds of layers because you want to keep everything. But for this kind of thing, which is me having fun, I like to paint with as little layers as I can, a bit like you were doing a real painting, basically. So this image was done for the character design challenge, I said. But so what their only rule is that you follow the the theme, but obviously, but also that you paint the whole character, top to bottom. It cannot be just a torso or just a face. Yeah, it has to be a whole character, like a design for a production of some sort. So that's the only requirement, I guess. And so I like that. And when doing a character designs, I've done a lot of the costume designs and weapons and things like that. It's very easy to get just someone sort of standing there at a distance from you with no care for what's happening in the background and the foreground. But in this particular case, I like to play with the third dimension. It's something I always tell my students, which is to think about what's behind us, what's behind the character that you're painting, you know, the foreground, background, midground. Even when you're doing a character, think about all these elements so that you create something more interesting. So at some point, you'll see I start detailing things here and there, but then I will erase and change my mind, and I do that quite a lot. I'd like to think about the third dimension. I'd like to think about movement and life. Also, I like a little bit of what we call eroticism. So it's something that when you say that, people think, ah, silliness, blah blah blah. They see these little stupid images, and they're only interested in the other thing that you can see on the internet. But I think eroticism is a magnificent thing. It's if you go back to the Greek legend, I think Eros was the fourth god, I think, to appear after Chaos, Gaia, the goddess of the earth, so Chaos, and then the third one was the guy under the mountain, I think, Phaistos or something, and then Eros, which is basically the force of life, and he is the artist. So it's basically a celebration of life and beauty, rather than just these silly things that we think it is. And in the Renaissance, of course, they used that as this little kind of Cupidon kind of guy with these little wings, this plump sort of baby. But I think there's more to it than that. I think there's a real sort of eternal archetype there that we can play with. And personally, I really like it. I think it's a necessity and makes people happy. You know, these ladies doing the burlesque shows, they're enjoying it. I mean, I talked to some of them. They just and they like the costumes. They like to to appear magnificent and play with humor and all that. It's not at all kind of a debasing. It's quite empowering for these ladies. So I try to celebrate that. And me, normally I paint sort of high fantasy, people with swords and axes and battle and horses and all that kind of thing. But I think there's a link between all of that. Anyways, so you can see me here. I changed her hair color, which was going to be blonde. Now I'm making her dark hair. I close her eyes. She's now looking down. I don't know where this image is going, so this is an exploration. It's basically thinking out loud as I'm painting, just looking what works, what doesn't, and if it doesn't work, even though you started detailing it, and then change it. Just don't be afraid to go back to the to the to the canvas almost, and then start again. Um, that's my personal take, but I've seen other concept artists do that. I was watching one guy doing an environment piece, and he was putting these brush strokes and then blurring them out, and then putting more brush strokes and then blurring them out. And I've seen a great painter doing oil paintings the same way. He does these environments, and he sort of uses a big brush and goes with like fat brush strokes very fast, and then create these magnificent landscape, and then erase them with another brush very fast as well. But something is left, and then he starts again and again and again, and so there's splashes and things, and it's as if this image is creating itself and recreating itself and disappearing, recreating, and there's something powerful and sort of magical into that. I think there's something of the process of creation that is utterly enjoyable. A lot of the students, they ask me, "Oh, what do you do, Frank, when you have a bad art day? Well, when you don't feel like it or anything?" And I say, well, basically you don't. So it sounds a bit arrogant, but you just basically don't have a bad art day. You just go for it. You become someone by doing something, and if you start painting and it's going to be terrible, then keep at it, and you will be finding your way somewhere. If you drop into the middle of the jungle, you'll find your way, rather than overthinking it and being depressed. See, I've changed the legs there. I put a curve on the back of her body. I think I forgot to tape this middle part there. There's about a few minutes that was missing. but you can see that the face has moved a bit more. So I've opened her eye now, eyes, sorry, and as the image is gonna zoom out in a few minutes, in a minute, you'll see the leg is now at the front of the character. Um, Still thinking about dynamic poses, movements, something coming towards you, walking at a brisk pace towards you. Yeah, what's in front, what's behind, action, movements, and yes, I do exaggerate some of the shapes. Yeah, obviously, I kind of make it uh, the waist very thin and all that. Once a lady started picking on my artwork on the internet. She said, "These are not realistic proportions." Blah blah blah. She was trying to show some of my images. And I was about to answer, that I do that on purpose. I do a lot of life drawing. I study it carefully. I know skeletons and muscles and things like that. But for the purpose of art, I think you can get away with exaggerating in the direction that you're aiming at. And my students actually defended me. They had really clever arguments. They knew what I was doing. They kind of so I didn't have to defend myself. I just watched the whole show. They had they were really clever. These millennials, as they're called now, the generation that's coming now is also different. But these kids have a lot of knowledge, and and she was quite surprised to see that I was defended by just about everybody. She was accusing me of having this sort of old-fashioned macho, I don't know, racist maybe, I don't know, something like that, which is total nonsense. When you don't know someone, you assume by just looking at their artwork, you assume all their personality. And all the students that defended me, you have to know that in England, as in Hertfordshire where I teach, there's 50% is minority anyway, so it's not like you are teaching to just one choir. And all the students, they know me. I don't hide anything. I just do my thing, and they enjoy it because I kind of try and communicate the pleasure of creating things rather than having this big sort of political agenda. Um, People are free to think what they want. Obviously, I don't want to force anything on anybody. But me, I'm not interested. Not interested in that. I think that what I try to communicate to people is more like a universal view of the world, or life, or what makes you happy, and then how can you move on to the next phase, by doing. Basically, it's more than overthinking. It's more like doing. So anyways, you can see me here using an overlay of color. So this is not going to be the final colors, but I start like that sometimes, like big gradients. I do that a lot in the speed paints, and I will slowly differentiate some of the areas, and I will use my thing, which is the curves, Control M in Photoshop. And when you play with the curves, you have really nice harmonics and things that are unexpected and curious. And so sometimes I will paint an image using color to begin with. Start with a color, merge some colors together, and start painting. But often I would, after a point, not like where it's going, and I would just take the colors down, take it back to desaturation, and then recolorize, because you can do that in Photoshop. You can't do that in real, like when you're doing real painting, because I do real paintings as well, and I like the fact that what you do there is forever. There's no undo. But here you can experiment, and you can trigger something that is unexpected. You can see me, I'm using like a bit of pink next to green. I'm trying to think of a way to. The whole point, I don't know, about digital painting is it's very easy to make something super polished and highly rendered. You can do a hyperreal render if you have the time of a lady like that. You can kind of study every single corner of the leg and the lace and all that. I don't plan on doing more than 3 hours of painting like that, just because after that I need to do other things, and unfortunately very busy. So I'm not going to go to the photoreal render. Yeah, it's not going to be like that. So instead of that, I'm trying to make it fun and illustrative, and to play with a style. Yeah, here you can see me. I've I've made one layer sort of yellowish, and then the layer above is kind of greenish, and I'm sort of removing and adding. So good. They both have the same painting, but I leave and on purpose some of it, you know, some of it in different color, so that you think that there's it's a bit like impasto in real paint when you paint your whole canvas yellow, knowing that your painting is going to be green, or red, knowing that it's going to be blue or something like that. So you have an undercoat that is totally different, and that, like, you can leave here and there appear underneath it all, so that it triggers the overall image at the end. Um, my style of painting, I like these brushes that are very grunty, because it's a very it's like a, I don't know, rock and roll, or folk music, something that's not very produced, that's not super uh, rehearsed. It's kind of raw, and you hear the guy play the guitar or something. You hear me play the brush there. You can see it, uh, and it's because I try to get away from the digital kind of clean painting. A lot of concept artists do a much cleaner painting, but there's a reason. I mean, this is what people want in the professional world, so this is something you need to do. I've done it myself, and I probably keep doing it anyways. So I will paint totally differently when I do professional work. Just aim more towards the photoreal, and then render and polish everything when you're designing, say, an armor or a gun or something like that. So you make sure that it looks like it should be. But here I'm going towards my own sort of world, and more like a illustration, and my usual themes of making people happy, life, celebrating life, movements, happiness, all that stuff. Um, yeah, you can see I've used some masks, and here I'm going to use the mixer brush. That mixer brush is great because it gives you the feeling that it's like an oil painting, so it mixes the painting in a bit like you would do in oil or acrylic when they're wet. But I'm not going to use that everywhere, just a tiny bit here and there, because otherwise, if I just keep the grunty brush, the image might look a little like overdone, and you want to have different levels of render. Like, see, for example, the arm there is a bit grunty, or the face. And at some point, you want to make it a little more refined here and there, but you still want to keep some of the gruntiness, because that's my style. That's what I like. That's what creates almost like a chalk or something like that, some kind of grainy material that you would use that creates an interesting, not clean look to it. Uh, but like I say, you can always overdo that. It's a question of subtlety, not doing something too much that it gets boring, because the whole image has become a one-off thing here. And also the details. So how much details do you want? When you do concept art piece, obviously you want detail top to bottom, because someone is going to build this character, this gun, this spaceship, or whatever. But if you're doing an illustration, like you think about great illustrators like N.C. Wyeth, Frank Frazetta, Jeff Jones, they don't do detail top to bottom, left to right. They do details where they want your eye to go, and then the rest is suggestive. It's big brush strokes. It's sometimes very, very coarse, on purpose. It's aiming at telling you a story. Oh yeah, I'm using the mixer brush there to kind of blur the hair in the background and try to get this sort of action thing. But I thought it was a bit, I don't know, the silhouette was not satisfying, because when you do a character design, the the number one thing to think about is the silhouette. Yeah, is the silhouette of this character readable? If you think of the most successful character designs like Batman or Gandalf or Tintin, they have a very strong silhouette. And as a shadow, you can read them from a distance. And so if you're designing something, you want to think, okay, how does it look as just a black silhouette in front of a white background? Yeah, how does that work? Is that working? Is that satisfying enough? And if the hair there, they kind of, I don't know, they contradict a little bit of the movement, and so you will see me sort of keep on trying to change their shapes, and maybe they're messy, they're too messy, and then after a while I'll just paint some pigtails because that's I think works better with the character. Just keep on correcting the leg. Sometimes even at this late stage like that, I will change a whole leg position. You know, if if I think that it could work even better if I did something else. And even though it's quite advanced, it has happened many times that I actually changed my mind up to the last minute. And you know, oh, don't like this leg, don't like these arms, new face, new do this, new that. Nothing is sacred until the image is finished. You know, when the image is finished, and you say, okay, this is me. That's how I stand. This is the thing I want you to see. But before that, you have to be able to change everything and keep yourself on your toes. So yeah, you can see there again changing the levels. The levels, Control M. There's a line, a sort of diagonal line in the middle. If you go too far away, it gets really crazy. If you go a tiny bit far here and there, it's really interesting. But you can overdo it, and sometimes after a while, I'll just take everything down to desaturation again and recolorize an image. Color theory is a thing I teach at university because I am fascinated by it, how it works and how it's extremely important for people. I think a lot of people get depressed when it's all gray and you have concrete buildings and there's nothing pretty. And when you go into the countryside and you see green trees in spring or autumn, and then you feel happy because of the colors. I think it has a lot more influence on what people think than on people's life than what people think, in my opinion. And so I try to challenge myself and to play with sort of unexpected colors, like a bit of yellow next to purple. A lady will be green. Yeah, people don't have to be. Nothing has to have these sort of expected colors. You ask I don't know, kids, they'll tell you, hey, the grass is green, the trees are brown, the sky is blue. But then you take them outside and say, well, where is it now? That grass is not green, it's all yellow, look. And then the sky, well, it's all whitish now. And the tree, well, they're very dark. And then the leaves are yellow. And where are your colors that you just told me about? And if you're an artist, you try to bring some of that into your images. If you don't do that, your images will be boring. If you don't take people into a slightly parallel world, you know, it's using realism like me, but it's not reality. Movies are the same. You know, movies are not. They're not reality. They're photos, action, people, actors, people acting, but they're not reality. They're scenes that have been picked, that have been organized, you know, and so you as an artist, you just have to recreate the world in your own way, if you will, to sort of reorganize it and any tools at your arsenal, like color, like composition, like perspective. These are the things that these are your instrument, your musical instruments, if you will. Anyways, so yeah, now I'm doing pigtails, which I like because you can see it's sort of let the body's silhouettes free, and this would work quite well as a silhouette, even though the legs are sort of crossing each other. She's kind of walking at a brisk pace, as I said, but as a silhouette, it would still read quite well. And the front leg there is coming towards us, and you can see the underneath. Oh yeah, this is another one of those where I colorize one of those reddish, and then the top layer is green, and I'm erasing using a mask. So and I'm leaving some of the red from the layer underneath. Yeah, appear here and there, so it sort of triggers your imagination a bit more. And yeah, also pushing one of those filters. I think it's the sharpen unsharpen mask filter. Sorry. Um, yeah, you can see there when you zoom in that it's very grunty. Like there's a lot of dots. Um, that that still works. I mean, to me, it's my style. You know, it's what I like. It's kind of a this sort of energetic, suggestive thing. Uh, but you have to not overdo it. If you do it too much, it could be kind of unpleasant. If you don't do it enough, then you get to sort of quite realistic, which is nice too. But I like to play somewhere in the middle, you know, so a little bit of gruntiness, but not too much. A bit like a good, I don't know, rock song or something. Even a good meal, if you think about it. You don't want something that's just sweet. You want something that has a bit of I don't know gruntiness to it. I don't know. I don't know how you say that, but sweet and sour, you know, a mixture of taste. Otherwise, it's not as good if it's just one taste. You know, it's the secret of cooking is the same, I guess, as the secret of painting. Um, yeah, I guess. I think that life, like in general, for me, it's to be enjoyed. Yeah, so don't just be a good artist, but be a good person altogether. Like when you do a meal, make the best meal ever. If you learn an instrument, a musical instrument, do that. All of these different skills will have will congregate into creating a nice and happy person. I mean, it's a fantastic world to be in. You have many things around you that you can enjoy. Beauty, beautiful architecture, and you can have an influence on things. So um, the the fact that I change my image from side to side all the time is so that I reinvent it, so that I don't get stuck to something too much. The only problem sometimes if you do that is you might lose the dynamism. You know, the image might be less dynamic if you keep on moving and correcting and correcting. Then you look at the last image that you've done, and it's not as powerful as the first one with all the problems that it had. So it's a double-edged sword when you flip your image. You can see it better because suddenly it's new, especially if you've been painting for like say 20 minutes on one side, then you move it 20 minutes the other, you go, oh, this is completely different. I need to adjust this, to adjust that. But you can also get how would I say sidetracked and lose the first thing that came to mind. Um, Now, at this point, I'm using a finer and finer brush, so I'm putting a bit of light on the left-hand side. I was thinking of the lighting quite a lot doing this image because I was trying to think the lighting is coming from the left-hand side quite low on purpose. The top of the image is going to be quite dark so that it lights just a little bit of her face, like one side, one breast, one leg. And then the rest will be in shadow. And I think the dramatic lighting also participate in the composition. It's another one of your tool. I try to make sure I play with all of these elements. This is my signature. I'm just going to put it one way or the other. And there you go. This is my lady Burlesque. There was a little bit more painting after I've stopped recording, but not so much. Well, I hope you enjoy that. Oh yeah, by the way, this horrible music coming next is me on the ukulele. See you soon.